On Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be, blue gals calling, come knit with me.
Hey there. Happy Knit a Second Sock Week. It is currently Knit a Second Sock Week. I am working on my second sock for March. These are the Sporty Stripe socks. Grocery Girl's theme for March is Sporty Stripes. And so this is a self-striping yarn from Earth, U-R-T-H, sock set. It comes in 2 small balls of sock yarn, and then they match. So I'm working on the second one, and I'm at the heel. So I have transferred this sock from double pointed size 1 needles to 2 circulars, because I do the heel on circulars, so I don't drop any stitches. And so I'll do the heel tonight and move on and zip through these before the 31st and have them done for March. And the April sock is, I think I have shown you this before. I've been wondering about whether this was the appropriate yarn. This is the opal. I'll show you. It's the opal sock yarn that is for the rainforest, and 20 years of the rainforest. And I'm going to knit simple Skype socks with this next month, and I was wondering if this yarn wasn't too busy for this pattern, but it's a knit 6 purl 2 pattern with a little decoration in the middle of the knit 6. And as you can see, the photograph on the pattern is plenty busy. So I'm confident that this is going to look okay. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about the habit that I have of knitting a knitting a pair of socks every month. And I went on AI. It's what is the name of it? Claude, Claude, which is my favorite kind of idea generator. And I don't consider it controversial to use AI to come up with ideas. It's a skill. Being able to ask the AI the right questions is a skill that it takes time to develop. I don't believe that you're removing the human element at all, because I'm actually engaging with research and trying to get ideas. And so, there are problems with AI, but it's not the use of it that's the problem. It's how people manage the data and privacy. I get that. But in terms of using it for artwork or idea generation or research, I think it's a great tool. And I like Claude a lot. Claude is really good at boiling down, for instance, things I've already written and I want to tweet about it, or not tweet. I'm not on Twitter, but on Blue Sky. I want to put a post on Blue Sky about it. I can ask Claude, if I've written an article, for instance, for Crooks and Liars, I can ask Claude, paste in the article and say, write me a post about this. And it'll generate something that's within those character limits, because it knows the character limits, and give me a summation of what I said in the article. So, I mean, it's a good tool. So I asked Claude, again, a Claude. I have been looking at the book Atomic Habits by a person named Clear. Last name's Clear. And that's like one of the top best-selling books of all time, etc. I wanted to get some ideas using the ideas from that book and relating them to knitting. And I wanted an outline of how to do that, just to get some ideas. And I'm sharing this with you because it's funny. One of the things Claude suggested was create visual cues that remind you to knit. Like what? Yarn all over my house? Would that be a good cue that I should be knitting more? But as I got into it and I'm looking this over, there were some really good ideas in here about habit stacking, which is the main key idea of Atomic Habits. The book is, if you watch a TV program every night, uh, fold your laundry at that time, or knit a sock at that time, or uh, you know, when you brush your teeth, you might want to do your meditation at that time. That you stack these things, something that you already do every day, or that you do regularly, and you're already trained to do that. Connect another activity that you want to accomplish with something that's already ingrained in your habit pattern. And so, as Claude summarizes Atomic Habits, Atomic Habits centers around the idea that tiny, consistent changes can lead to remarkable results. For knitters, this translates perfectly into our craft. Rather than focusing solely on the finished object, Clear's approach encourages us to build systems that make completion inevitable. And that's what the Grocery Girls Sock Bash is about. That every month you have not only a challenge to finish a sock in a pair of socks in a month, but you also have a theme that lets you go and shop your stash. And so, for instance, this month it's sporty stripes. So you could go and find some colors that either are self-striping like I did, or find some yarns that go along with your favorite sports team and stripe some socks that way. The next month is find a pattern by a designer you've never knit before. So you'll go through your patterns, or you'll go through Ravelry and find a pattern by someone you've never knit anything by that person before, and it's something fresh. So you've got something fresh to knit. And then you go shopping for yarn that goes with that pattern, and so forth. It just goes on. And every month you're in the habit of finishing a pair of socks. And I really want to encourage anyone who has difficulty with finishing stuff to find a small project, and for some people, a pair of socks is not a small project. I get it. It's tiny needles. It is. And if you're a slower knitter, or you don't appreciate small needles, and some people really just can't work with size ones, I totally get that. But knit a hat, knit a pair of mittens on larger needles, something that is doable inside the course of a calendar month, and learn how long it takes to knit that small project. Let your brain know, apart from you knowing, let your brain know, okay, I know a pair of socks takes me 17 days. I think that's about right. So 14 to 17 days, give or take. So, because I know that because I've done Sock Week 3 years in a row. And Sock Week is Nitty Natty's challenge to knit an entire sock in 1 week in the summertime. And so I've done that enough to know, okay, I know when I, power in to get that sock done in a week, I can do it. So I know I can knit 2 socks in 14 days and or maybe a little less. And it's kind of funny with these socks. I when I knit this first sock, the yarn comes in little balls, 2 little balls of yarn, so that the socks are matching. And I was actually on exactly this point with this sock, where I just finished the leg and was getting ready to do the heel. And I thought, wow, this sock leg really ate up this little ball of yarn, and a good chunk of it. And I'll bet that I used 20 grams of yarn in just the leg. And so I put this ball on the gram scale, and it was 30 grams exactly. So, I mean, and that's just from knitting a pair of socks every month since January of 2024. So 18 months or 16 months or whatever. 15 months. Yeah. So I've knit 20 socks now. This is my 20th pair in a row of finishing a pair of socks. So I can tell you, and the socks go to the college student. I've said that before. That's where they go. So um yeah, I know what 20 grams feels like. That's how much experience I've had. Uh I have some funny things to share with you. One is my church group Stitch and Go, which does a lot of charity work. They do a lot of sewing and a lot of mostly sewing, but some of us do knit hats and crochet edging on blankets, and they make T-shirts with snaps on them for cancer patients who have ports for their chemo. So that and these are T-shirts that we get from the Goodwill, and we'll put the group will the sewers in the group will put a snap. They make them as strips now. Snap strips. You sew them in and then line them up and snap the T-shirt closed. But it's so that they have essentially something you can throw away if you need to. If bodily fluids get on it, let's just put it that way. But it can be unsnapped and snapped up again while you're putting the port in for chemo. And we donate those. I mean, everything's just donated. So one of the things that is going on now is Stitch and Go is encouraging people to take home yarn that has been donated. We have a ton of yarn that's been donated, and of varying qualities. And one of the volunteers put together bags of yarn for hats. And there was a logic to how I really appreciate it. There was a logic to how they put the bags together. They either did similar weights or similar colors, or but grouped things together so that the individual bags that they were kind of grab and go would make sense. That, okay, there's yarn in here. I know I can make a hat out of this. And so these two fingering yarns were in one of the bags, and I brought this home. This is fingering weight. This is Rowan Camello, which is a high-end merino wool and baby camel 25-gram balls. I went and looked it up. This is around $9 a ball for 25 grams. So this is like, a quarter of a pair of socks. $9. And they had this bagged up with this yarn, which is Gala 100% acrylic from Big Lots, $1. So Big Lots, you know it, you love it. Very high-end Rowan baby camel blend with, made in Turkey, 100% acrylic, Big Lots, Bucka skein. I'm not going to combine these yarns to make a hat. That would be hilarious, but I'm not going to do it. But, this will make some disposable socks to go to a college student, and this will make a nice hat. So we're there. And there are at least 3 balls of this. So I know I'll be able to get a hat out of this. This is over 100 yards, 191 yards. And this is really fine fingering weight. Since I have 3 balls, I might actually be doubling that, holding that double to make a hat. Okay. So that was funny. Then also on the table with all of this donated yarn was this. You guys remember this stuff? This is that fringe yarn, novelty fringe yarn that back in the aughts, in 2010 or so, a lot of people were putting these little loops, there's little string loops on needles and knitting across, and the this ribbon of loose threads and lurex or metallic, whatever it is, would gather up and make a gathered fringe scarf that would spiral and go around your neck like a feather boa made out of glitter and acrylic. And this is green and blue and orange and gold to make a yarn boa to go around your neck. And this was a, manufactured yarn. This took some time to make and was expensive at the time. You can get this at Big Lots now for $1. I am sure of it. It's discontinued. It's like Red Heart boutique ribbon yarn, something like that. It doesn't have a label with it, but I went and looked up, and I think it's Red Heart Boutique is what this is. But man, kind of a monstrosity is what I'm going to say. So here's the deal with why I brought this yarn home. I am taking my 2 younger children on a Holland America cruise next summer in 2026. It is a bucket list thing. I'm not going to say it's affordable. It is simply a graduation present. Middle child graduates this year. Youngest child graduates from college next year. And I know that their lives are going to not allow for travel with mom pretty quickly after college graduation. So I want to grab them before that happens, before they have families and kids and full-time careers and so forth. And I just want to grab them for a week in the summer of 2026 and take them. It's a 4th of July cruise. It starts in Boston, and it spends 4th of July in Boston Harbor. It spends the evening. It doesn't sail until 11 p.m. on 4th of July, so that we can sit on the ship 4th of July and watch the fireworks in Boston from the water, which, I mean, that alone is just fantastic. So, and then it does New York, Philadelphia, and St. John's, New Brunswick. So we're going to just do art museums on that trip. But it's Holland America. Holland America has, I've been on Holland America once before. They have an orange night where everybody wears orange something. And I am making out of this, in addition to this, I took some orange acrylic and I'm making little necklaces. And so I'm going to make 3 of them, 1 for each of us, and putting that little fringe, casting on with that, and putting that little fringe on the bottom of an orange cowl. That is not going to be very wide. It's just going to be maybe 3 inches. So it's going to be kind of a necklace kind of thing. But the idea is to wear it on orange night. And it's just a crazy little collar to wear on orange night on the ship. And so what I'm going to do is make 3 of these. And then if there's any of this left, I'll crochet it onto the tops as well. But it's just a little orange collar to go around the neck for the party night, for orange night on the ship for each of us. And so it is possible. First of all, I want to say, I wanted to show you this because that shows how unafraid I am of being judged for, probably the most novelty yarn I've ever owned. I'm not going to cast aspersions on it because I'm actually making something functional and fun with it. But, it's a piece of work. Let me put it that way. And silk purse out of a sow's ear. This is something that is useful for that trip and future trips if we ever go on Holland America again. But like I said, I think this is a bucket list once in a lifetime thing for the 3 of us to do together. I'm going to read. Oh, I'm still working on blankets for Lent till the 20th of April. And I gave the turned out the woman whose yarn it was for that feather and fan blanket that I mentioned last week, she wants it because the baby that she knit it for 35 years ago, the baby that she started it for, is now getting married. So, and that's perfect. I mean, great. So I gave that away, and two other blankets that I'd finished. Took those to church yesterday. I'm working on the corner to corner pastel-ish pink and yellow and blue that I showed you last week, and also the mitered cross blanket. I have 5 squares done on that, and that's actually a thing where I'm going to, with the next square, figure out how long it takes me to make a complete square, go from beginning to end, and just kind of keep a little time tracker of how long that takes, so that I have an idea of whether I can finish it before the end of Lent. I would really like to. Okay, I would like to read. I always like to read at the end of our podcast. And I'm going to read from A Knitter's Home Companion, heartwarming collection of stories, patterns, and recipes. It's by Michelle Edwards. She was, at the time of this book in 2011, the author of the e-newsletter for Lion Brand Yarn. And the book flap says she lives in Iowa City, Iowa. So she's a Midwesterner. I'm going to read the chapter, or the little essay, called Only Wool. Only good friends and fools knit wool afghans in the summer, even with air conditioning. But Annette Mack was more than a good friend. She was a wise guide, and if anyone deserved a hand-knit afghan, she did. For more than 16 years, this devoted mentor had generously shared with me what she knew about nurturing relationships, running a household, and cultivating a community. Now in her 80s, her kidneys had failed, and she was on dialysis. It was a beastly summer day when Annette called. A special Iowa brand of humid heat that makes corn in the field grow an extra inch. Boy, do I know that heat. Air conditioners were humming at high levels all over the state. Smart people moved slowly, stayed inside, rested by a body of water. Committed wool knitters were eyeing cotton and investigating the merits of bamboo. They started socks, washcloths, and hats, works that rested on the needles, not on the lap. Are you still knitting? Annette asked, a question only a non-knitter would ask me. Sure, summer knitting, I should have added. Annette was going to dialysis several times a week. The treatment room where she sat for hours and hours was damp and very cool. To stay warm, she'd been covering herself with an old sweater, which was now falling apart. Could you knit me an afghan, she asked, in wool, like my sweater? Of course, I said. Are you sure you want wool? Looking out into our backyard through the heat's haze, the grass was browning to crisp dryness. Only wool, like my sweater. What about microfleece? I asked, my fingers ready to punch in an ordered LL Bean. What's that? And so she goes on, and she has a struggle with finding the right wool, finding the right pattern. And in the meantime, she and Annette are talking on the phone regularly, and the blanket isn't done. And she winds up asking her daughter to do blanket stitch around a piece of microfleece and send it to her to tide her over while all of this process knitting is going on. And they send the microfleece blanket from the daughter, knowing that Annette will love anything the daughter made. 2 days later, Annette called. What Mira made, that's the daughter, is just perfect, Annette told me. So now you don't have to finish that afghan. But I had started to make great progress, and I couldn't abandon my promise. I had finally found a good pattern. A welted rib with a few yarn overs knit on larger than called for needles. It had airy warmth. Done in strips, perfect for hot weather knitting. It worked up in a flash. I delivered it a few weeks later. My daughter's micro fleece blanket became Annette's trusted dialysis companion. I used to wish I had sent her one immediately after she had called. She would have had it for all those weeks when she called asking about my progress. Weeks that proved to be among her last. But all those calls were always a chance for us to talk about other things as well. They kept her up to date with what was happening with my children, and because it was because it was summer vacation, one or more of them were usually around to say hello and chat a bit with her. I also believe that Annette knew how hard I tried to knit her the perfect Afghan. My final thank you to her for all that she had given me over the years. I don't regret my knitting procrastination anymore. These days, I'm thankful for the connection it gave us right up until the end. That is Only Wool by Michelle Edwards. And she begins this piece with a quote from Annette Mack, which is, "The days are long, the years short." And I was inspired by that because these days, with everything that's going on, the days are long and the years hopefully are short. And we can hang in there. So thank you. I hope you are knitting a second sock, whether you're doing 2 at a time or if you're knitting your first sock. Don't forget, we'll do second sock week at the end of every month because I always have a pair of socks going. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
On Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be, blue gals calling, come knit with me.